Unit 1, Advanced Democracies. During the era of the Cold War, most political science scholars categorized countries of the world according to the three worlds approach. The first world included the United States and its allies, the second world included the USSR and its allies, and the third world included all countries that could not be assigned to either camp. Today, with the Cold War over and the world encompassed by forces of globalization and fragmentation, we will use these three categories to more effectively compare political systems: advanced democracies, communist and post-communist countries, and developing less developed countries. In this section of the book, we will consider advanced democracies. What do we mean by the term advanced democracies? The term applies to countries that have a long history of democracy, that is stabilized as the established form of government. We may consider these countries according to two dimensions: political type and level of economic development. Political dimensions. Politically, advanced democracies exemplify many facets of democracy, not just the characteristic of holding regular and fair elections. Other qualities of advanced democracies are civil liberties, such as freedom of belief, speech, and assembly; rule of law that provides for equal treatment of citizens and due process; neutrality of the judiciary and other checks on the abuse of power; open civil society that allows citizens to lead private lives and mass media to operate independently from government; civilian control of the military that restricts the likelihood of the military seizing control of the government. Advanced democracies generally have a high degree of legitimacy, partly because their systems have been in place for a long time. Another source of legitimacy is a large amount of social capital, or reciprocity and trust that exists among citizens and between citizens and the state. All advanced democracies guarantee participation, competition, and liberty, but they differ in the methods that they use. For example, some have proportional representation electoral systems. Others have plurality systems, and still others combine the two systems. Participation rates vary considerably too. The uses of referenda and initiatives differ greatly across these countries. Most advanced democracies use them, although the United States, Japan, Canada, and Germany do not allow such votes on the national level. In most of the countries, it is the responsibility of the state to ensure that all eligible voters are automatically registered to vote. However, in the United States and France, the responsibility to register rests with the individual. In several Scandinavian countries, citizenship is not required for voting. Anyone who is a permanent resident may vote. In Australia, Argentina, Uruguay, and Belgium, voting is mandatory. Economic dimensions. In thinking about the values that form the political culture of advanced democracies, they may be described as reflecting postmodernism. Modernism is a set of values that comes along with industrialization. Values of modernism include secularism, an emphasis on non-religious aspects of life; rationalism, reasoning; materialism, valuing concrete objects and possessions; technology, bureaucracy, and an emphasis on freedom rather than collective equality. In other words, industrialization encouraged making money and gaining economic success. Advanced democracies such as Britain and the United States experienced this transformation during the 19th century. Others were later, but all advanced democracies have also experienced postmodernism, a set of values that emphasize quality of life over concern for material gain. Some examples of postmodern values are the preservation of the environment and the promotion of healthcare and education. These values accompany the economic changes of post-industrialism, in which the majority of people are employed in the service tertiary sector, including such industries as technology, healthcare, business and legal services, finance, and education. These contrast to the most common type of job created earlier by industrialization, the industrial secondary sector, which employs people to create tangible goods such as cars, clothing, or machinery. The agricultural primary sector of postmodern societies is very small, since mechanized farming, first developed during the industrial era, allows only a few farmers to produce enough food to feed all the workers in the industry and service sectors. The sector percentage for some advanced democracies looks something like this. We may also refer to advanced democracies as liberal democracies, which value individual freedoms in both economic and political realms. Many advanced democracies, but not all, established democratic political systems many years ago and now operate under stable governments that have long followed democratic traditions. Many countries in Europe are among the most stable democracies in the modern world. Although their political systems operate in a variety of ways, they share common characteristics that allow effective comparison of both similarities and differences. The citizens of each country are diverse, and they actively participate in political affairs. In the AP Comparative Government and Politics course, Britain represents this group. Britain has a well-organized competitive party system and interest groups, as well as a representative form of government. International organizations, the European Union and Nafta. One of the most important developments of the past few decades in Europe has been the slow but steady march toward integration of the continent's countries. After World War II, the most obvious need was to rebuild the infrastructure of countries devastated by the conflict. As the Cold War set in, the Iron Curtain separated Western and Eastern Europe based on economic and political differences, with countries in the East dominated by communism. Still, the urge to integrate first economically and eventually politically continued throughout the century. By the early 21st century, the European Union had emerged as a strong supranational organization that encourages cooperation among nations and promises to redefine the meaning of national sovereignty. Old nationalist impulses currently threaten to weaken or even dissolve the Union, but so far, the supranational organization has held together. The North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, is an international organization that binds the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Created in 1995 mainly as a free trade area, NAFTA has much narrower integration goals than the EU, and its member states still retain their sovereignty. Unlike the EU, no common currency has been adopted for North American countries, and no parliament or court systems have been set up. In the first part of this section, the political system of Britain will be discussed, and students should note that the outline of concepts in Chapter 1 is followed throughout. The second part of this section is a brief review of the development and current status of international organizations, with a focus on the European Union, a major force that shapes policymaking in Britain and other European countries.